Until now, no American president had ever faced a criminal trial. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment for retaining and concealing classified documents. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment or a state indictment for trying to overturn an election or been named an unindicted co-conspirator in 2 other states for the same crime. No American president ever faced hundreds of millions of dollars in judgments for business fraud, defamation, and sexual abuse. Until now, no American presidential race had been more defined by what's happening in courtrooms than what's happening on the campaign trail. Until now.
And this is true. We're now accustomed to the constant fire hose of Trump's criminality. But does that mean we should get complacent? Just cover it as regular run-of-the-mill news, following his motorcade at every intersection in Manhattan like it was some car chase.
You're looking at live pictures in New York City of Donald Trump's motorcade.
It's about a 20-minute drive between Trump Tower and the court building.
Trump leaving Trump Tower on 5th Avenue.
They're now making their way across town along 57th Street. They just crossed Park Avenue, making their way up towards Lexington Avenue.
He's heading down the FDR
to the Manhattan courthouse on Chambers Street.
Arriving at this intersection of American history with defiance.
Or does it mean we need more of this from the likes of George Stephanopoulos, where he breaks down just how unprecedented this Trump insanity really is?
What does an unindicted co-conspirator mean? Because that's what Donald Trump is in Arizona, and he's also an unindicted co-conspirator in Michigan. So what does it mean? And does it mean down the line he could be indicted?
Exactly. Remember, Donald Trump is the indicted defendant in the D.C. election interference case. And there are multiple unindicted co-conspirators like Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, John Eastman and Jeffrey Clark, the corrupt former DOJ official. What does it mean? It means they're going to be indicted at some point.
They can't indict him until some of these people flip on him?
I think the reason Jack Smith is waiting in the D.C. case is because he wants to bang out the Trump case, resolve it, then he'll go after the unindicted co-conspirators. But let me add this to complicate matters even more, Steph. Just because you're an unindicted co-conspirator doesn't mean you will necessarily be indicted. Like I say, lots of moving pieces.
Over the weekend, Trump proved yet again that nothing gets under his jumpsuit quite like someone making fun of him in a room full of people dolled up. And so White House Correspondents' dinner host, Colin Jost, got the Jimmy Kimmel treatment.
But before I begin tonight, can we just acknowledge how refreshing it is to see a president of the United States at an event that doesn't begin with a bailiff saying, "All rise." And I would like to point out, it's after 10 p.m. Sleepy Joe is still awake, while Donald Trump has spent the past week falling asleep in court every morning. Though Fox News said he was just being anti-woke.
But in more serious coverage, George Stephanopoulos opened his show Sunday with blistering commentary on the state of American politics, brought about largely by, quote, what's happening in courtrooms and not on the campaign trail. And all Stephanopoulos had to do was check off the litany of legal cases that Donald Trump has both faced in the past and currently is facing, to remind viewers that, quite frankly, this is not bloody normal.
Until now, no American president had ever faced a criminal trial. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment for retaining and concealing classified documents. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment or a state indictment for trying to overturn an election or been named an unindicted co-conspirator in 2 other states for the same crime. No American president ever faced hundreds of millions of dollars in judgments for business fraud, defamation, and sexual abuse. Until now, no American presidential race had been more defined by what's happening in courtrooms than what's happening on the campaign trail. Until now. The scale of the abnormality is so staggering that it can actually become numbing. It's all too easy to fall into reflexive habits, to treat this as a normal campaign, where both sides embrace the rule of law, where both sides are dedicated to a debate based on facts and the peaceful transfer of power. But that is not what's happening this election year. Those bedrock tenets of our democracy are being tested in a way we haven't seen since the Civil War. It's a test for the candidates, for those of us in the media, and for all of us as citizens.
And allow me to speak candidly for a couple of minutes here, because this has really got under my skin. Yeah, it's all fun and well to get dressed up in bow ties and suits and make fun of the threat that Donald Trump poses if he is to return to the Oval Office in 2024. But of all the jokes at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there is nothing funny about the possible threat to democracy if Trump is to get back in to the Oval Office. I mean, let's put aside the fact that he shelled out millions of dollars after being found liable of committing sexual assault, that he's complaining about the temperature of the courtroom that he's sitting in as he faces prosecution over hush money that he paid to an adult film star to interfere with an election.
And even having to do with articles, somebody writes an article, if I read every one of these articles incomplete, I read some of them, and I'll look at headlines, they're all good headlines, that the case is a sham. But I can't read the whole thing. I've been reading, this is like reading a novel. So I put an article in, and then somebody's name is mentioned somewhere deep in the article, and I end up in violation of the gag order. I think it's a disgrace. It's totally unconstitutional. I don't believe it's ever, not to this extent, ever happened before. I'm not allowed to defend myself, and yet other people are allowed to say whatever they want about me. Very, very unfair. Not having to do with the schools and the closings, that's Biden's fault. And by the way, this trial is all Biden. You know, this is all Biden, just in case anybody has any question. And they're keeping me in a courtroom that's freezing, by the way, in a courtroom all day long. Well, he's out campaigning. That's probably an advantage because he can't campaign. Nobody knows what he's doing. You can't put two sentences together.
Instead of being muddied in the hyperbole of that, how about we look at what he has actually done, his record, and what he threatens to repeat if he gets the chance? What about the family separation policy, the absolute brutality of ripping children from their mothers? What about saying with a full chest, as he campaigned for the presidency first time around, that he would ban an entire religion based on his own bigoted beliefs, and then not only just said it, but he did it?
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice.
What about the fact that he pioneered the formation of a conservative Supreme Court that swiftly has stripped away a woman's right to choose, and as a result, we see things happen in Arizona where laws are re-implemented, laws that originated before the Civil War? What about the fact that nobody who worked for him during his previous tenure has endorsed him for president again? Well, nobody except for Bill Barr. But as we know, he sold enough books that he could rip off that Velcro spine and retreat back to the cocoon of self-loathing that he currently resides.
So you and Biden are about the same age. What do you think? Are you one of those people who wished he had bowed out, let the field choose somebody else? How do you think about that?
Well, I think that I walk a little similar to him. And the people that I've talked to and everybody that I have say he's as sharp as a tack. He's fine. We all have an issue with memories. As we get older, we forget names, something. He's overcome a stutter in his life, and sometimes he might. But let's just say that his entire cabinet, including his vice president, everybody in his cabinet, would be more than happy to work with him again in the next term. I cannot say that about the other candidate running, because nobody in his cabinet from 2016 wants to be involved with him.
Think about that, right? And then think about the fact that he is allegedly tied with the incumbent. An incumbent who has oversaw one of the greatest economic recoveries in modern day American history, has remained true to his campaign promise of overseeing student loan forgiveness, is responsible for a record-breaking stock market, historic lows in unemployment, record investment in green energy, historic cuts to prescription drug prices, historic infrastructure investment, all of this after inheriting a literal train wreck because of his predecessor.
Joe Biden has been doing the work. He's been out there on the campaign trail. We keep talking about Sleepy Joe. This man, well, he's sleeping. I don't know when he is because he's hitting the campaign trail. He's going all over the country. Donald Trump's golfing or sitting at a table and complaining and whining and everything else. Joe Biden's working for the people. And that's the contrast.
And if that doesn't take the alarm off of snooze, maybe this will. Despite this vast scale of abnormality, a new CNN poll, swallow that with a pint of salt, shows Trump leading Biden by a staggering 6-point margin. 49% to 46% if they were to go mano to mano in November. This is far from a joke, right? And the Biden administration needs to listen to its base about what is discouraging voters. Because let's not pretend that the administration's biggest victories have came in areas where they have been most moderate. No, not even close. It has been areas in which they have embraced more progressive ideas. Because the harsh fact is this, despite the plethora of baggage that the other guy brings along with him, this administration's approach to things like foreign policy, their muddied response to Netanyahu, where they oppose his military action but then also simultaneously provide billions, it's contradictory and leaves voters discouraged, allowing, and I'm not being facetious here, the alternative to become more appealing. And whether you agree with that or not, I'm not here to assume that the abnormality of Trump's ongoing criminal cases is enough to win the election in November. I'm not willing to take that chance, not while democracy is at stake. This election matters far too much.
Okay, it's safe to say, and I'm sure you're tracking this, that there was a lot of legal news this week. In a courtroom in downtown Manhattan, there were hours of testimony about Donald Trump and the National Enquirer, and how they worked together to kill stories that might hurt his chances in 2016. Learned a lot about that. Here in Washington, inside the Supreme Court, Trump's lawyers were making the argument that sure, killing your political rival would be completely fine for a president. That was their argument. I mean, it's been a lot to take in. But what happened this week matters. It should matter to you, all of us. And it's important to talk about why, especially during these moments when it feels like we're all drinking from a news fire hose. So we're going to start on Thursday at the Supreme Court, because when you listen to these arguments, and it's cool that we could, you may have thought to yourself, I mean, this can't possibly be serious.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
I mean, you heard that correctly. He said it could be an official act. So basically, I'm going to pause here. The lawyers for the former president of the United States and likely Republican nominee are arguing that, sure, if he or any other president for that matter just has a feeling that their opponent is corrupt, they can take care of that by killing them. But wait, there's more. At one point, Justice Kagan asked if a president can sell nuclear secrets to a foreign adversary. What did Trump's lawyer say? Basically, yep. And what about ordering the military to carry out a coup? Can he get away with that? According to Trump's lawyer, maybe.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.